Hey everyone, welcome to AMC Mailbag, the all mailbag show here on AMC Movie News, where all we do is take your questions. I'm Ashley Mova, and if you've got a question that you want answered on air, you can send it over anytime to amcmovietalk@gmail.com. You could get it answered on Movie Talk or Mailbag, and sitting with me to answer those questions right here, right now, is the editor-in-chief of AMC Movie News, John Campea. John, what's up?
Hey guys, welcome to our first mailbag in the new studios. I don't know if this will always be our set. I think we're going to move mailbag to one of the other sets, but we're still getting everything set up here in the new AMC Movie News headquarters. So we're just using this set for now, but I'm very excited to do mailbag.
This looks legit.
It
Not
does.
I'm
feeling pretty legit.
All right, first question comes from Dejan Borjanovic, and he writes, I've had a thought. Do you think Age of Ultron will at all include the Tony Stark panic attacks he was experiencing in Iron Man 3? These panic attacks were kind of a big deal in that film. And do you think perhaps Stark creates Ultron so that he doesn't have to deal with threats that cause him to be stressed out and panic like Loki and his alien invasion did? Thanks for your thoughts.
Well, you know, it is a great question because at the end, well, not at the end, but during Iron Man 3, I mean, that was one of the better parts of Iron Man 3 was he's almost dealing with this post-traumatic stress syndrome, right? And he's having nightmares and visions of the alien invasion, which is, I mean, a refreshing drop of realism in Iron Man 3 and in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, yeah, if you're just a human being dude and all of a sudden you're facing a swarming horde alien invasion army, and then you go through a wormhole and you're in the dead of space and you lose air and your power goes out and you think you're going to die, blah, blah, and then you fall to earth. You go through all that, You're going to have issues. You're going to have issues. And I like the fact that they addressed that. And that became not just an element, but it became a key thing, right, in Iron Man 3. Now, at the end of that movie, Tony seems to come to some sort of resolution. It's like, oh, okay, so I cured my love. I cured the love of my life. And I got this thing out of my chest, which I personally think was a mistake because that Tony needing that as a part of his body, that's a kind of a key thing. So I wish they left it in, but whatever, they took it out. And so there's a little bit of resolution there, but they didn't say his post-traumatic stuff was dealt with or finished. And I don't know if you guys saw this online, but a few months ago when Marvel had their big announcement day, when they announced all their big lineups that they've now shifted around a bunch because of Spider-Man, but they showed us a clip that you can find on YouTube and online. They showed us a clip of Avengers Age of Ultron, and it's of Captain America and Tony Stark just chopping wood together and having this conversation about, and trying to end a war before it even begins. And Captain America says, whenever somebody tries to end a war before it even starts, innocent people die. Always. I mean, there's a great scene. And then when Captain America, because Tony says something that ticks him off, and Captain America rips a log in half with his bare hand. It's a great scene. Anyway, in that scene, and we don't really know the context of the scene, so I don't want to read too much into it. But in that scene, Tony is saying, it's like, isn't that the point of why we fight? So we can end the fight and go home. It's almost like there's this thing in Tony's voice about he's still facing the terror of it all and what that all means. And so, once again, I don't know. I took that scene completely out of context. So I don't know what the context of the scene is. So it could be, he could be speaking that way for an entirely different reason, right? But what you're saying in the question is actually very valid. Is his creation of Ultron, or picking up the Ultron project that maybe his dad started, or maybe that Hank Pym started, or whatever, but is his picking up and completing the Ultron project a part of him trying to save the world, but not having to do it himself, but not having to put himself in those situations because maybe he can't deal with it anymore? I don't know, but if they did that, that would be a very interesting thread because I'd like to see them explore a little bit more of this whole PTSD stuff in Tony Stark, or they might just throw it away and ignore it, and that's fine too if they have a better story idea. But I think it's possible. Like you're asking, is that possible? I think it's possible. We might see it.
Do you think it takes away from, I did like to see, I guess, a more vulnerable part of him, but do you think it takes away from his, like, because when I think Iron Man, I think like OG, like that's a gangster right there. And to see him have these vulnerable moments, it's like, it was different to see. Do you think that would take away from his like swagger a little bit?
Totally fair question. And I'm going to say, I think it might be the exact opposite. See, I find it interesting when our heroes have vulnerabilities. Like Superman without kryptonite is actually rather boring. I mean, a dude with no weakness, what's the interesting thing there? I like seeing our heroes vulnerable and flawed. And because to me, the idea of a hero is not necessarily somebody who is physically invulnerable, who is all perfection. The idea of a hero is somebody who can take whatever weaknesses or fears or doubts or limitations that are in front of them and strive and overcome those to achieve something they need to achieve for the greater good and stuff like that. That to me is what a hero is. And so to have Tony Stark having that weakness, because by the end of Iron Man 1, I mean, he's going into battle zones and taking out tanks and just doing whatever he wants. He's taking on an invading alien army. It's like, I think if you make him too powerful, too strong, even just mentally, I think that takes away from him. And I think a dude with weakness is the one who will exhibit the most swagger because it's a little bit of a compensation thing, right? And I always had the feeling for both Howard Stark, his dad, as we see in Agent Carter on TV, which, by the way, was a really good show. I didn't like the finale of Agent Carter, but I thought the show was really good. But as we see in Howard Stark and we see in his son, Tony Stark, they both have this incredible swagger, but part of that swagger is to cover their insecurities. And so to explore Tony Stark's weaknesses, I think that will make his swagger all the grander, you know? So I don't think it takes away from him.
All right, we'll see. Elite Gunner 9 writes, "Hey AMC, I love the show and I am excited for phase 3. Before I ask my question, I want you to know that I go to high school in Canada. My friends love to watch movies with lots of action. During the Oscars, my friend told me he wanted Transformers 4 to win because he thought that was the best movie. I tried to convince them to watch Whiplash, but they won't watch because they think it's boring. Have your taste in movies changed since you were in high school? Have you always leaned towards movies that are for mature moviegoers?"
Well, I mean, okay, first let's start with this. You need better friends. We'll start. No. I mean, to me, Transformers 4 was one of the worst films I've seen in a long time. It was one of the worst movie-going experiences I've had in the last full year or two. I thought the movie was horrendously awful, and I drank the Kool-Aid. I bought in. I told people, you know what? You're going to say I'm crazy, but I think this Transformers is going to be the one that redeems the franchise. So much for that. But that's, once again, highlighting the beautiful thing about movies. The best thing about movies is that they're all subjective. And just because I saw it and I recognize it for the steaming pile of garbage that it is, doesn't mean you're going to not like it. You know, I say this all the time. You could take a piece of art and hang it on the wall and then have 10 people standing around it. They're all going to see 10 different things. And that's the great thing about art. And movie is art. So when you watch a movie, you're going to have a different experience than mine. You know, Ashley's going to have a different experience than Jonathan, and Dennis is going to have a different experience than Christian's. I mean, that's the best thing about movies, right? So there's that. Have my tastes changed in movies since I was a high schooler? Well, I mean, all of our tastes change, whether it's the type of food we like, the type of clothes we like to wear, or the taste of music that we have. So yes, my tastes have changed. But for the most part, it's still pretty similar. I mean, I was in high school when Lawrence of Arabia was in my top 10 favorite films of all time. I was in high school when the original Ben-Hur was in my top 10 favorite films of all time. Now, at the same time, that was also one of my other favorite movies were the Transformers animated film and Star Wars, obviously, and like movies like that. So I'd say that's still kind of reflective of me, although my tastes have changed a little bit. They all change in all of us. But like talking about tastes of change as we grow, this I recognized from a very young age that our tastes change. And I remember for me, it was a revelation because of a TV show. And I used to watch this children's TV show when I was a little kid. And then I remember I didn't see it for like 6 months or a year later, and I watched it again, and I did not like it. It felt like it was for little kids, right? All of a sudden. And I recognized, wow, my tastes change. And that is the reason you will not see...
I was about to ask you, do you have any tattoos?
You won't see any ink on me. There's no ink on me anywhere. It's not that I have a problem with tattoos or anybody. I think some tattoos on certain people look pretty badass and great, and that's wonderful. But because I recognize, man, my tastes change, I better not get something tattooed on me. A great example of that, and I won't say his name, but I had a buddy of mine who, when he was like 17, thought, this is going back, all right? This is back in the day. Thought G.I. Joe was the coolest thing ever, and thought Cobra was the coolest thing ever. He got on his back, from shoulder to shoulder, a giant Cobra symbol, right? Which at the time, I mean, today, some people would still say that's pretty awesome. But at the time, he thought that was the greatest thing ever, right? Well, that was years before I met him. And then we were adults when we met. And I realized, hey, this dude never goes to the beach. He never goes to the pool. And then I found out what it was. And he was so embarrassed by it by the time I knew him. He never wanted to go to the beach. He never wanted to take his shirt off and stuff like that. Our tastes change. How many of you women out there who are in your 30s now, there was a day when New Kids on the Block is something you would have lived and died for? Probably a lot of you still do. And that's totally fine. Nothing wrong with that. But I think a lot of you, if you're more liberal with your tattooing things, you would have tattooed "I love Joey" forever, going right up across, right? And you would probably regret it today. So that's why, for me, recognize my taste change. I decided, for me personally, a lot of people might have tastes that remain the same more and more, and that's great. That's awesome. But for me, that's why I never got ink. And so what does that have to do with movies? Yes, our tastes in movies change. Sometimes some of us buy a lot, some of us buy a little. For me, it's been a little.
His question got me thinking, what was his name? I don't know what his name was, but Elite something. But it got me thinking, do movies that are geared towards older audiences, do those make more money? Because they tend to be more successful, I would say.
Well, I mean, successful. I mean, Avatar is the biggest movie of all time. Titanic was one of those. Titanic was one of those movies that appealed to. That was one of those movies where every time you went to go see it in the theater, there would be some 80-year-old couples. There'd be some 30-year-old couples.
I remember seeing
there'd be
the theater.
teenagers.
My mom would cover my eyes during that scene where she was naked.
Oh, sure, yeah. There would be like young kids. I mean, that was the type of movie that appealed to everybody. But there's younger audience appeal there. Avatar. Star Wars, Avengers, all the biggest movies of all time, all have a clear, not necessarily exclusively targeted at younger audience, but are definitely younger audience friendly. Older, more mature films that, like Gone Girl, whatever, they can still be big hits, but if they are limited to just older audiences, much like if you have movies that are limited to just kids, like sound effects, I think of this, a great iconic movie sound effect is when you could sit in a room, close your eyes, and somebody will just play the sound, and it will take you there. You won't just remember what movie it's from. You won't just know right away, oh yeah, I recognize that. It has to have that, but it also transports you into the movie. That when you hear that sound in your head, you're there in that universe, right? And for me, no sound effect will ever be as iconic or bigger or do that more than the simple sound of a lightsaber. The sound, it's a universal sound. You turn on a lightsaber to some kid in Portugal, he'll know exactly what you're talking about. You hit a lightsaber sound here in Burbank, California, everybody on the street. Yeah, young, old, black, white, straight, gay, it don't matter, rich, poor, blah, blah. We all know the lightsaber. And if you're sitting in a dark room, just close your eyes and they play that sound, you are teleported into the world of Star Wars. So that's one big thing. Another one for me, this won't be for as many people as like the lightsaber one, but for me is the shriek, snicket sound of Wolverine's claws popping. Oh. Like if I'm in a room and I close my eye and hear that, I'll know instantly, and I'll be looking at Hugh Jackman in the face in my mind, right? So that's a big one to me. Another one, if you're in a room alone, closing your eyes, dark room, and you hear a whip crack, what do you instantly think of?
Indiana Jones?
There you go. Indiana Jones. Like for me, when I hear that whip go, like I'm there. I'm taken into that world. One of the best examples too is, I know there's still, for those of you who are watching the show and you're like under 25, whatever, you may not have seen this, but there is an amazing movie called Monty Python and Quest for the Holy Grail. And in that, whenever King Arthur and his knights are riding along, they just skip. They don't have horses. They skip like this, and they have a little servant who runs behind them with 2 empty coconut shells going as they're going through the countryside. So whenever I hear that of the coconut shells, to me, that just whisked me into the movie. I'm there. I see King Arthur on his quest for the Holy Grail. It's great. And another one, going back into the sci-fi genre to me, is dark room, close my eyes, play the Star Trek teleporter sound. You turn on, you play the teleporter or the transporter, whatever they call it in Star Trek, and I'm there. and I'm there. So, and I'm sure there's lots and lots and lots. Actually, I'd be curious for you guys. Hop in the comments section of this video and let us know what are some of your favorite sound effects that kind of whisk you into that movie. I'd love to hear what you think. What about you? What are some of your favorites?
I can't think on the spot.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things that you can't just think of off the top of your head. For me, lightsaber. But the other ones I had to sit down and think about for a little while. Yeah.
But then I was thinking, is this a job? Who makes these sounds?
Oh yeah, sound editors. Yeah, like the great
sense,
Ben Burtt, who was the sound editor on a lot of the Star Wars films. I mean, there are documentaries on Ben Burtt, who's also an editor. He actually did the video editing for like the prequel films, but he is a sound editor, and there are specials and little documentaries you can look up online on YouTube
those, like,
of just
clips.
him and what he would do. It's like, we need a sound. I'm watching something in the movie and I need a sound that does that. And he'll drive 3 miles into the desert.
They come up with, it's crazy.
Oh, it's incredible. These sound editors have the coolest job in the world. Their job is to watch something on film and say, I got to come up with a sound for that. What do I do? Yeah. And they'll do the craziest things to capture that sound and then use in the movie. It's a great gig.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Great gig.
Ben Dieter writes, hi guys, love the show. I was wondering what all your thoughts were on the Vision tease at the end of the third Avengers 2 trailer and what you think his role in the film might be. I personally think he may serve as a last hope type for the Avengers since Ultron made him, and Vision would know Ultron better than anyone.
Well, I mean, I don't know that Vision would know Ultron better than anyone. We don't have any reason. I mean, Ultron makes him, but that doesn't mean he knows him. I think, if anything, Tony Stark knows Ultron better than anybody. If what we suspect is true, Tony makes Ultron. If that's the case, Tony will be the one who knows him better than anybody, or maybe even Jarvis will know him better than anybody. But Paul Bettany, who does the voice of Jarvis, is playing Vision. So I'm curious to see how that all morphs together. I don't know what they're doing with Vision, but I will tell you this. A lot of you know that a few months ago, I sent John Schnepp to London, and Schnepp to go do to go visit the set of Avengers Age of Ultron. Like, John Schnepp, when you're watching the movie, there are scenes in that movie where just off camera is John Schnepp sitting there in his full sweaty, geeky going, like you're like really nerding out. That's, just imagine that. When you're watching, I defy you now to not see that in your head when you're watching Avengers Age of Ultron, that knowing just off camera is Schnepp, yes, doing his John Schnepp things, geeking out. But one of the things that when Schnepp came back, one of the things that he told me about, and I won't say who, but he actually got to sit there and watch them shoot a fight between someone and Vision. Wow. And he said it was one of the cool... Oh, okay, look, that's no spoiler. You saw that Vision's in the trailer, so you're going to assume he's going to have some fight with somebody. So Vision's in the trailer. I don't know what side of the fence Vision's coming down on in this. I don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy, or if he's fighting with the Avengers or fighting against them, or if he starts fighting against them and then joins up with them. I just don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. Now, in the comic books, John, this ain't the comic books. I mean, Whedon has shown that he will depart. When it suits his needs, he will depart from what they do in the comics to do his own thing. So we don't know what that's going to do. So what is he going to be? What's Vision going to be? What role will he play? I don't know, but I'm sure dying to find out.
Does John Schnepp know? Did he sign stacks and stacks of papers
when
he had to go there?
Yes.
Does he know?
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah, but
do you know?
I can neither confirm nor deny that I know anything.
I plead the fifth.
I plead the fifth. All right, what's next?
Alan Spinks writes, hi guys, greetings from Australia. I love the show. I was excited/scared when I heard about Uprising. The Moon is a Harsh Mistress was way better, as Heinlein was my favorite author growing up, and like most of his fans, I was very disappointed with Starship Troopers. So my question is, are you still excited when your favorite books get made into films?
I am absolutely still excited when I hear about favorite books of mine being made in films because of this. Look, any movie has a 70% chance of being bad, a 30% chance of being good. I mean, that's generally the ratio that comes out, maybe 60-40, right? And so, look, when they're turning your favorite book into a movie, it might be awesome or it might be terrible. That's the roll of the dice. But I feel the same way about it that I do about remakes in general. Look, if I've got, and you've heard me say this 100 times, but it bears repeating here because it applies. If I've got a classic movie I totally love, let's say Ben-Hur, right? And they're remaking Ben-Hur right now. They're doing a remake of it. I love the original Ben-Hur. but I'm excited about them doing another Ben-Hur. And somebody saying to me, well, John, what if the movie sucks? Then the movie sucks. I still got the original. If it sucks, that's too bad, unfortunate, but they gave it a shot. Didn't work. Still have the original Ben-Hur and all my Kirk Douglas, not Kirk Douglas, Moses, out of my cold dead hands. Who starred in
Charlton Heston.
Charlton Heston. Thank you. I could totally see his face and see his. Kirk Douglas is one of my other all-time favorite movies, Spartacus. But anyway, it doesn't matter if the new one sucks. Doesn't matter. And the same thing is true of a book. Like, I love The Hobbit, one of my most treasured books growing up and as a child, one of my all-time favorite books, right? And when I heard that they were going to be doing Hobbit movies, I thought, well, these are going to be awesome because The Lord of the Rings were awesome. But even if the movies suck, it doesn't affect my love of the book. I still got the book. So who cares? So, and as far as the whole thing about Starship Troopers, that to me is one of my absolutely delightful guilty pleasures. That movie is so bad, but it's so self-aware bad that it doesn't even try to not be bad and just embraces it. And in doing so, it became incredibly entertaining. So I actually kind of like Starship Troopers, but yeah, I still look forward to my favorite books being turned into movies.
Do you think that there's pressure on movies that are being turned into books, like 50 Shades of Grey, for example? I know everyone has this picture in their mind of what these characters are going to look like and how this movie's going to turn out to be. So is there more pressure on those directors that are, obviously it's really exciting. I mean, I would have loved to direct 50 Shades of Grey if I was a director. But do you think that there's more pressure there for them?
Oh, I think so. Yeah. Whenever you have a franchise or whenever you have a property that has expectations at all attached to it, but especially books, I find fans of books can be particularly vicious and can be particularly passionate. And that's a good thing. That's a very good thing. Because it means you got all this interesting movie. I mean, look at the opening. 50 Shades of Grey made like $80 million on its opening weekend, right? That's because you have passionate followers, passionate fans. So does a pressure come along with this? Well, absolutely. Because there are movies that get made where the studios just want the best movie they can, and they don't really know how it's going to perform. They put what they can into it. They get the best people that they can come up with into it, and they hope for good things. But then there are some movies that they expect to, number one, be good, or number two, make big money, or in some cases, both, right? So Avengers Age of Ultron is a movie that the studio is both expecting it to be great and expecting it to make huge money. So there's big pressure there. Right. For a book like 50 Shades of Grey, yes. However, in the case of 50 Shades of Grey, even the book's most diehard of fans will acknowledge that the story in 50 Shades of Grey isn't exactly the best, you know? There's just something about it that really appeals to them. So they, as an audience, may even have a little bit of a lowered expectation going into the movie, so that can work in your favor, but I think you're right. I think, yeah, it brings pressure and it keeps the pressure up.
Azan Manji writes, as a huge fan of Tom Cruise and the MI series in general, I'm a bit concerned that the marketing of the film hasn't began. With only 5 months till its release, when do you think the first trailer will drop?
Okay, we go over this, and we're going to have to do this all the time. When people have a movie they're really looking forward to coming out, they're going to be worried about, oh my gosh, the trailer isn't out yet. So we've addressed this a lot. We addressed this with Fantastic Four. We addressed this with a number of movies that come out, but it bears repeating here again. The movie is 5 months away. What's the point in putting out? Look, it's not like this is an Avengers thing or a Star Wars thing, right? Star Wars put out their first teaser a year in advance. I didn't think they needed to do that, but they're Star Wars. People have been waiting for a new Star Wars, for over a decade, ever since the prequels finished. They've been waiting for something to happen with new Star Wars. And ever since they announced that Star Wars was bought by Disney and the franchise is being reinvented and all that kind of stuff, it added to the excitement. People were excited, looking forward to this. So they decided to put that. I think that was more of a service to fans than anything else. But for the most part, look, would it be a mistake if Mission Impossible 5 put out a trailer right now? No, it wouldn't be a mistake. Do they need to put out a trailer right now? No, they don't need to put out a trailer. I'd say, look, we're still 20 weeks out. 20 weeks. 20 weeks. Let's wait till we're inside 12. Yeah. If we're 3 months out and there's no trailer, then I'll start going, they should probably start getting the campaign going. But 5 months out, I don't think it's necessary.
I do not even know how I remember this, but a year ago on Movie Talk, we were talking about these new rules that NATO, National Association of Theater, they came out with about trailers having to be a certain length of time, that to be shorter. And then also another one was the time period a trailer could be released before a movie came out. And I think that each studio gets one exception.
Or a couple of passes.
Yeah, to every rule. Did that actually happen, or did it?
That is a great question. You know, that's a terrific question. I should look that up, and I should give somebody a call at AMC. I wonder if I know anybody at AMC that I can call.
Wonder.
I'll call somebody at AMC, head on, find that out, because that, if I remember it right, and I may not be remember it right. Actually, fact checker Jonathan, can you look up what those rules were? Those new trailer rules that were set out by the MPAA. Just flag me down when you got the answer to that. But if I'm not mistaken, and I probably am mistaken here, I think it was 6 months. You can't put out a trailer more than 6 months in advance. And I think it was like 2.5 minutes. A trailer couldn't be longer than 2.5 minutes, which I think most people were very grateful for. They don't want to see 3.5 minute trailers where all like so much of the movie's being given away. And then I think every studio had 2 or 3 like a hall pass. They had 2 or 3 free passes that, okay, you got 2 movies a year they can put up for more than 6 months in advance or something along those lines. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, but I think even if that's the rule, for Mission Impossible 5, we're inside that window. Okay. So I don't think we're in too much trouble there. Did we find anything on that, Jonathan?
They're restricted to 2.5 minutes each. Each studio is given 1 pass per year.
1 pass, okay.
And also they can't be marketed until 4 months before their release, including trailer play. But there's also some exceptions there too.
Right. So in 2014, in the last 2 weeks of 2014, Lucasfilm used up their free pass by putting out Star Wars, but that clock resets for them for this. Yeah. I guess I can't remember. When did Marvel put out their first trailer? Was it more than 4 months? Fact checker Jonathan again. When did the first Avengers Age of Ultron trailer drop? Because I got a feeling that was a little bit outside of 4 months, but it might have been on 4 months on the nose. I can't remember. But that would be theirs, I guess. Past, yeah. For this month or for this year. But I don't know if it implemented, if it's supposed to implement over time or stuff like that, but it will affect how we see those things. So anyway, did we find an answer on that, Jonathan?
Yeah, I see October 22nd here. Was
okay, so that's 6 months out. So if the rules passed and they passed in the context that we understand them, then that would have meant that Marvel used up their pass for that. But I'm really fascinated by this. I need to look more into it.
It's interesting.
All right, what's next?
Thomas Hamilton writes, "Hey, AMC Movie Talk. I love the show, and I watch it every day after work. Just one question. Avatar 2/3. What's up?"
Yeah, well, as a matter of fact, it's not Avatar 2/3. It's Avatar 2/3/4. There are 3 more Avatar movies coming. The first of which was supposed to be released in 2015. Avatar 2 was supposed to be released in 2015 originally. Then James Cameron said, I need some more time, He got a new writing crew together. So they said, okay, Avatar 2 in 2016. They said, well, I need some more time. Yeah, I'm developing some new technology. I got a new team of writers again, and we're working on scripting it all out because they want to shoot Avatar 2, 3, and 4 all consecutive. They want to shoot it all back to back.
Crazy.
So they want to start shooting and say, and that's a wrap when they're done Avatar 4.
Wow.
So they felt they need a little bit more time to get all that. So now, James Cameron says that Avatar 2 is scheduled to come out in 2017, with Avatar 3 coming out in 2018 and Avatar 4 coming out in 2019. Now, ask me again in 3 months, because maybe we'll be at Avatar's now coming out in 2018. It's been shifted a couple times already. I think he will hold to this release date. I think he will hit this target. I do believe we'll get Avatar 2 in 2017, then 2018, 2019 consecutively. So I think he's going to make it this time.
So the actors involved in the movie, if they're going consecutively, basically for the next 4 years, they can't really be involved with anything else if they're working so hard to make this huge movie.
Not really, because honestly, remember, it can take like a year and a half to make a film, right? But the actual production part, the actual time they're actually getting in front of cameras and shooting, on average is a little over 2 months.
Oh, wow.
2 to 3 months is the average.
Even for a big movie like that?
Sometimes a big movie will go like 4 months or 5 months. But if they're shooting all these 3 films back to back, I gotta believe, I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but I feel pretty confident that they'll probably have all 3 movies shot like on camera and on film for them to start working on probably in a year.
Wow.
They'll probably have that all done in a year.
That's
and then it's going to
amazing.
be another couple years of post-production and visual effects and sound and lights and all that kind of stuff. So, but the actual in front of camera part, they'll probably get it all done in a year
Wow,
or
that's
close to it.
amazing.
Yeah.
Ivan Varags writes, "Hey AMC movie crew, congratulations on Phase 3. The studio looks great. My question is about Kristen Stewart. I used to joke on who would be a worse actress to cast, Kristen Stewart or Megan Fox. But since Stewart has been showing her acting chops in indie films, she is obviously a better actress. Do you think this is why she was cast in Twilight? And maybe it was a not so good performance because of the direction she was given? Or was she bad and then got better? Thanks and keep rocking the movie news."
Kristen Stewart, to me, and I've been putting a couple of actors in this category. Kristen Stewart might actually be a little bit of a Heath Ledger. Because remember, Heath Ledger, as much as we all fondly remember him in his greatest performance as the Joker, Heath Ledger had some really, really bad performances at the same time. He was hit and miss. When he was on and he was at his best, he was elite. But he wasn't always consistent, and he wasn't always on, and he wasn't always at his best. So once in a while you would get a Joker, once in a while you get a Brokeback Mountain. But then for every one of those, you would have, a Casanova, or you would have a Knight's Tale, or you would have something like that where he would just give like, what is he doing? Things like that. Kristen Stewart, I didn't have a very high opinion of for a long time, because forget the Twilight series aside, she did Adventureland, which a number of people really liked. I thought that was a poor movie and people just wanted to like. And I thought she was very bland in that, like incredibly bland. And then obviously one of the big ones is Snow White and the Huntsman. She was terrible in that. She was just terrible in Snow White and the Huntsman. And I don't know if it's a distraction because the little thing she had going with the director, or I don't know what it was, but
Awkward.
a little awkward. But I mean, she was bad. Now, that being said, then she comes out a couple years ago with The Runaways. And she's quite good in The Runaways. I think she played Joan Jett. And she was really quite good in The Runaways. And then this past year, she's in Still Alice, where she's acting opposite Julianne Moore, who was head and shoulders the best actress of the year and just won the Academy Award. But she's acting alongside Julianne Moore, and she was holding her own. Like, she did not, like, sometimes you watch a movie and you see one actor who's clearly superior and just a great actor, besides somebody who's not a very good actor, and it shows. Kristen Stewart, all credit due, she held her ground on screen with Julianne Moore, which elevates everybody, right? So I'm starting to think that Kristen Stewart may not be all that bad. She just might not be consistent yet. And if she can start getting consistent, if when she's at her best becomes her norm, she can be a really exceptional actress. So I'm going to be, with great curiosity, I'm going to be keeping my eye on the next few films she does, because she's clearly got the talent in her. Let's see if she can actually just like cultivate it.
Do you think that acting is one of those things, kind of in the sense of singing, that you're born with, let's say, a good singing voice, and then you can go to this voice coach that can help you kind of develop this voice and become a better singer, but at the beginning of it, you already could carry a tune? Is acting the same thing? And I could, kind of give you a good monologue. So let me go to this acting coach and he can develop you to be this great actor. And if you're a sucky actor, there's really nothing you can do about it.
I believe that there are people who are born with an advantage, being naturally gifted or have natural inclinations towards something things. But I also compare it to physical attributes. There are some people who are just physically born stronger, right? There are some people just born physically, they're larger, they're naturally stronger, they can naturally lift a little bit more than normal people and stuff like that. It's just natural. But you can take that guy and then take a guy who's born naturally weak and naturally small, like he's 5'4" or something like that. And he's a small guy, small frame. You can get those two guys, right? But the guy who's born small, he gets in the gym, he works his ass off, blah, 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 blah. In a couple of years, he's beating the crap out of that guy who's naturally born bigger and naturally born stronger. I think the same applies to the arts and talent. I believe there are some people who are born with a natural gift, but it's not really about the natural gift. Now, there's a lot of people who disagree with me, and that's cool. I could be totally wrong on this, okay? But it's not just about being born with the natural gift. It's, are you smart with it? Do you honor the gift you have? Do you cultivate the gift you have? Do you dedicate yourself to the gift you have? Do you do what you need to do to take that gift and actually turn it into something? Because until you turn it into something, it's just a gift, right? And so if you take that guy who's naturally born big and that guy who's naturally born small, and they both work out and they both do what they need to do right, then the guy who's naturally born big will always have a little bit of an edge over the guy naturally born strong. But I believe you can take somebody who's born with no acting ability, and with the right training and with dedication and with study and with work, they can become an actor. You can take somebody who has got all the acting talent in the world that just doesn't treat it right, and they can be on screen in 100 movies and won't matter. They'll still suck, even though they had that natural gift that they could have been good. So I do believe it's something that can be developed, but the people who are born with it, all other things being equal, will always be a little bit above everybody else.
This was so inspirational. It was really inspirational.
I'm here to inspire. I'm here to inspire.
I felt it. All right. That was our last question, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. Just a reminder, lots of great movies being shown at AMC Theaters today. So go ahead and head on over to www.amctheaters.com for all of your theaters, showtimes, and ticket information. If you want a podcast version of this video, check out the description box below and make sure you click that subscribe button. Thanks to the guys in the room, Dennis and Jonathan and Ray. And thanks to this guy, John Campia. John, where can people find you online?
You can find me in all the social media networks at John Campia. And yeah, thanks for following me, guys.
And you guys can find me on Twitter and on Instagram at Ashley Mova. And thanks so much for joining us again, guys. Bye.